right? Not there. Okay. You ready?
Wait a minute. Let me just open. I made some notes. Where are they? Podcast on Friday.
Iisakkila.
Yes. Iisakkila, yeah.
Iisakkila.
Up. Sorry. Here I am. All right. Got it.
You ready to go?
Yes.
Okay. 3, 2, 1. We are back. Welcome to the Leadership Launchpad Project. I'm your host, Susan Hobson. And oh yeah, you heard me introducing the podcast today. So you know what that means. We are giving Rob the day off. My good buddy Rob was kind enough to step in when I was down with the vid. So I decided to give him a little relief today. And yeah, I couldn't be more excited to bring today's guest to you all. Kaisu Iisakkila has been with us for almost a year now at Team Elite. We first, I think, crossed paths when you came into one of our team locker room experiences. And now you're in our Legacy Leadership 2.0 locker room. So I can't wait to dig into some of that. Just to introduce you to our crowd, Kaisu is an R&D leader at Nokia. I'm going to let her explain more about what that means. But Kaisu, welcome to the show. It's so fabulous to finally have you. I've been so looking forward to this interview. So Kaisu, why don't you start us off? Why don't you introduce our people to yourself? Tell them a little bit about who you are and the mission that you are on in the world.
Okay. So hi everybody. I'm Kaisu Iisakkila, and I'm from Finland. I'm a telecoms engineer by profession, and I have multiple decades of experience in the telecoms industry. And I love engineering. I love technology. So when I was a little girl, I used to play with Legos. And finally, I didn't have to grow up in the sense that once I graduated high school, I decided to keep on building Legos, and I started building mobile networks. So I know how all these mobile networks work. Well, I know a part of it, or I'm working in in a company that builds these mobile networks. So the part of the infrastructure that you never need to basically think about, but this is the one that allows you to make mobile phone calls. And so throughout my career, I've always been engaged in the future technologies. So that's the best thing that you can do as an engineer if you like technology, is to basically understand what's coming next. What is it going to be when you have a new mobile phone in 5 years? Maybe you will be sitting in a 3D meeting room with avatars of ourselves and things like that. So there's really cool stuff coming up, and you get to be a part of that, developing the next cool things. So it's endlessly rewarding and exciting. So I'm really a tech geek in that sense. Then I have another passion as well. So approximately 10 years ago, I got in a situation where I was asked whether I would like to take the job of my team leader, who was actually moving back to India. She was a wonderful leader. I really loved her. I knew that she was leaving, but to my surprise, my boss came and asked that, okay, would you like to take her place? And I was like, no, I can't do that. I could never be her. And there was my leadership lesson number 1 for corporate, that, Kari, who was who was the boss's boss at the time, said that you can't become her. You have to basically walk in your own shoes. So you have to be yourself. And I thought about it for 24 hours and then I thought, okay, I'll do it. I didn't even know I was going to do it, but it just happened just like that. And ever since then, I've, in addition to technical work, I've also been a team leader. That is actually until the end of last year. Now I'm again in an expert role. But yeah, people management is something that is also a very big ambition of mine, and basically the way that innovation is managed in organizations in this collaborative teams, and how you can basically help and foster this innovation, how you can build these kind of creative spaces by means of people leadership, because that's actually something that really needs to be fostered. It's all these things that are creative, and when you're inventing new things, you kind of need safe spaces and spaces to breathe and to think and to collaborate and to experiment and to be brave. So there's a lot of things that need to happen in order to have a creative organization. And I think that's endlessly exciting as well, that how you basically create this kind of spaces. And this is something that you can keep on learning about for at least 10 years and maybe decades. So yeah, I have these two different spheres. I love the technology and I love the people. And there was some student counselor that already told me in university, when she did some kind of testing for me at the time, that, you're a bit special here, that, you're very, very social. And then I was like, what? And she said, okay, well, you stick out of the crowd in that you're really, really social. And then I was like, okay. So maybe my two sides were sort of visible to this student counselor already at that time. So yeah.
She must have been a good one if she was able to calibrate that so well, right? In you, because now when you look back on it, it's pretty accurate.
True.
I want to back up and just explore. Obviously, when you got tapped for leadership, your first response was, oh, no, not me. And that was because you believed that you had to be exactly like your leader.
Yes.
Which I kind of feel like is something we got to talk about, right? Because I think that imposter syndrome does prevent a lot of incredible, high potential people like you that actually care about people from even stepping into the ring.
Absolutely.
So now, obviously, you overcame that. You got enough excitement to say, the heck with it. Let's give this a whirl. And then you went on this mission. And I would presume that would require you to have to learn about leadership in regards to what it is and what it isn't, right?
Yes.
To be able to overcome that imposter syndrome. So why don't you tell us a little bit about what that experience was like?
So my first stint as a team leader was actually relatively short, because the company that I was working at by that time, the company that I was working at then actually had to close operations pretty soon after. So I encountered a very critical situation very fast, is that the shop was being closed and we were all getting fired. So basically, that was one of my early experiences as a leader. And very, very quickly, I had to sort of encounter my team members as these kind of living, breathing humans who have their fears and their aspirations, and who are in a very, very difficult situation. And I didn't have any answers. So then I thought that what I can do is I can listen. So that was basically my
strategy,
my crash course, that I have to keep the people as much informed as I'm able to, and I have to keep listening, and I have to keep checking in, and I have to be present. So I actually didn't know it, but because of that extreme situation, I was already forced to do things that are very much, I would say, basic components of a good modern team leadership, is that, which I believe are, that you have to show up and be visible. You have to listen. You have to see people for who they are. And, you have to give time and be generous and see people as individuals. So these are very much at the core of my perception of leadership, is that you have to see the human being. And it's also a little bit of a Christian thing, because I thought about it when I was going through these leadership exercises in this course, that I remember my mother, when I was a little girl, she's actually from, she came from a situation where she lost her father at a young age after the Second World War, and she's coming from a very poor family on the countryside where she doesn't have a lot.
Right.
And she always wanted to, when she finally then had stuff to give, she always wanted to be generous, and she wanted to see all human beings, and still does. She's still with us. So she always wants to see people as equal, that she wants to basically welcome people. And that made a lasting impression on me, that, people don't have different worths, or everybody is actually valuable in the eyes of God. I'm not a very religious person. This is very common in Finland, that people are actually very, very secularized, but we have this very, very Christian ethic of thinking about equality. It's a very egalitarian society, I think, and I would assume it's very egalitarian compared maybe to US culture. I don't know if it's the same in Canada, but we are sort of an equal bunch, and it's sort of a good thing that you see the human being and you take them at their worth. So yeah, I'm getting so excited about this Christian thing that I'm wondering where I came from. But what I'm saying is that this is basically one of the core values of leadership, that we are actually equal and we all have stuff to bring to the table. And if you are a leader, it's not because you're better, but it's because you have a gift of bringing the people together and facilitating the collaboration. So does that make sense? Because I don't know how what are these kind of, because the thing is that leadership is also culturally situated. So I know it for a fact that different cultures have different perceptions of leadership because of the history and the the moral upbringing and different types of ethics. So
yeah, and the societal values and norms. And yeah, I mean, we talked to Gwen Cooper, a former CIA agent who we had on the show. She was talking all about how that is the starting point in terms of being able to align with the leaders that she works with, is understanding the cultural norms and values. Because yeah, that obviously impacts their beliefs, right? Their mindset in regards to how they believe they should relate to people, and especially in the context of work, which can look very different from what, that looks like in personal society. So I want to go back to that, because I feel like where we started, right, was asking if that, like, what did you have to do to be able to step into those leadership shoes when where you started when you were asked was, oh, no, not me. I don't know how to do this leadership thing. And then you started to talk about a lot of, I presume, the instincts, right? And the intuitions that you were having in regards to, seeing your grandmother just care about people and see people as equal. I mean, I believe parents and grandmothers, they're leaders too, right?
Yes,
so you obviously had one heck of a model, which we talk about all the time as a Leadership 2.0 strategy on this show. That model carries a lot of weight. So that had a lasting impact on you that obviously showed up in service to you taking on this challenge to lead people through this really disruptive time. But was there any, so I think maybe even fast forwarding to some of your future leadership opportunities that would come after that initial, onboarding experience that wasn't necessarily what you thought it was going to be. But yeah, when did you really start to go on this mission to want to learn about how to up-level your leadership skills? And when did that begin for you?
Well, actually, it began after this short period that I could be with my first team. I then went to join another company. Where a much larger company, where the manager who hired me asked me to please make this team the best place to work, and he gave me the instructions that first of all, just listen to them, listen, and that's when I actually started studying, because this large company actually offers a wholesome curriculum of leadership courses which teach about leadership skills. At that time, when I started, that was 2013, they had decided to invest heavily in the first line leadership skills, because someone had showed them a graph that told them that, if you invest in this first level team leaders, you get the best value for the money, that you increase the productivity of the teams by so am I still on?
Yep, I can hear you. You're good.
Okie dokie. I can't see you now, but
it just disappeared. Don't worry, Rob can edit this part out.
Okie dokie, don't worry. Let me see you. Where am I? I'm having some. Okay. I'm here
back
again.
Yes.
Okay. Yes. Okay. So maybe I go back a little bit. So when I joined this, or let's see, where could I basically start again?
You starting to learn about leadership skills. You had access to some programs, right? And you started to actually go after that opportunity.
Exactly. So I was just telling that my boss then cited to me that there is this kind of hardcore proof of money and productivity that by
ROI.
investing, return on investments, if you invest in the leadership skills of first level team leaders, the productivity of the company will
rise,
increase.
Mm-hmm.
And at that time, they had these new things about brain training, leadership and brain training. And they were introducing this SCARF model by Chris Rock about the components of engagement. Like, how do you basically make employees feel engaged? And they weren't talking about psychologically safe, but I would like to add that those are actually the same components that are needed for psychological safety.
Mm-hmm.
And I really loved those brain training modules, because here was the theory that I always like to get, that okay, this is the way you do it, that people need to have a sense of their status, like what is their position, what is their mission, how do they fit into the picture. Then they need to be, okay, what's the C component? Anyway, relatedness was one of them. You have to be a part of the in-group, that you have to feel that you belong. You have to be respected. You have to be seen. You have to have autonomy. I'm always working with these very, very experienced experts. So they need to get their autonomy to be happy. And then things need to be fair. and things need to be predictable. So that's about it. I can't remember the exact things about this scarf, but I've been reading this scarf again and again and again, that these are the components that will create the conditions for your brain to be creative and productive. And I bought it all. And I think that's really the basis of where I'm coming from. And everything else was an add-on, because that's when I was starting as a manager. So I had this opportunity to really do the theory when I joined this second team setting.
And
So
after all of that, I love the fact that you actually had the opportunity to study what leadership is, what it requires, develop some skills in and around what's required. I love that you're given that opportunity, because obviously you had the desire, right, to acquire more knowledge so that you could confidently lead those people in the right direction.
Yeah, because I wasn't confident at all. I thought this leadership role was weird. And you know, I remember when I had taken the job, but then when I invited people for their one-on-ones in my early times as a line manager, I wasn't sure about my role yet, especially since I didn't know the people yet in the second team setting that I had. But then I did get to know them in the end, and then I built the role, and it was not a role where I am telling them what to do. It's a role where I listen what they are doing, where they would like to go, what are they happy about, what are they not happy about. And then I tried to figure out that, okay, based on this information of these experienced people, into which direction should I take this team? And I was actually asking them about this. So this kind of very strong elements of consultative leadership, that was the one that was mentioned in the link that Rob just recently shared. So consultative leadership, when you have this team of experienced experts, you have to ask them for advice. But okay, you have to decide after, at the end of the day, someone also needs to decide. So if needed, then you need to decide, because if everybody's not agreeing on the direction, then we still have to go somewhere.
Yeah.
And also we are, of course, always constrained by what the company wants to pay us to do.
Right. Yeah.
But
of course,
everyone who's in the game gets it. So, I mean, the people don't really have a problem with that. I think people can be engaged in many different types of missions and objectives if they get to participate and shape it and own it and drive it, so that you give them this kind of autonomy and possibility to flourish, agency to flourish in their role. So I think that's why consultative leadership is such a 2.0 strategy, right? Is because you want to make sure everybody at that table not only feels seen, feels heard, right? That they feel that they have a voice, that they can contribute their valuable ideas, that their ideas are valued enough to actually hear, right? So I think that obviously is a big aspect of why we talk about that so much and around engagement, right? Because empowering people to feel that they have a voice and that their ideas are valued, like obviously that's going to get them to lean in, right? And collaborate with their teammates. And like you said, that's where innovation lives. So I'm curious, after all of this learning that you obviously started to do, the knowledge that you started to acquire in regards to what works best in regards to what conditions work best, right? To really cultivate high performance teams, high performance results, high performance ideas. So after going through all of that learning, what did leadership mean to you then?
right? Because I think where we started is leadership means I have to have it all figured out at the front of the room so I can tell everybody what to do. Kind of feels like that has changed at this point in your story. So what does it mean to you?
I think I'm this kind of servant leader that, I mean, at least in this kind of job where you have very, very experienced experts, where I have no possibility whatsoever to basically even master all of the things that they are doing, then what you need to do is you need to serve these people. You need to create the spaces for them to succeed. You need to find that type of jobs where they can learn and flourish and challenge themselves, where they can also have some decision in what they are doing. So I like this concept of job crafting, that you try to build these packages where you can succeed and learn and flourish.
Mm-hmm.
And to the job of the servant leader is to help this to happen. So it's, open doors to where you can open doors, and to remove obstacles whenever you can, and to support people to take challenges. And what else? Just be there and connect this. Yeah, importantly, connect this that we're doing to the overall mission. So that's always important. Like when you see where the company is going, you have to be able to write a narrative that, hey, now this boss is talking about, industrial robots, that this could be a business opportunity for us. Now, see, this is actually where our team comes in. This is the project that we're working on. So you have to be
connecting the dots,
the dots, and
finding that through line between your purpose, your sweet spot, right, and the mission, and the purpose of the business.
Yeah. And also, I mean, sometimes we connect the dots together. So this kind of servant leader of experts really, really needs to actively use the expertise of these team members, because I think that's also a reward, that you can contribute your knowledge to your own manager. I know that when my manager asked me for advice, then I thought it was great. I thought, yay! I mean, that made me feel like,
of course,
like I have something to
valued.
give.
Yeah,
exactly. Yeah.
Well, I think it's great talking to you about this. I feel like you acquired so much of that knowledge. You're still on your mission, acquiring that knowledge today in our locker room with the legacy folks. But yeah, I'm just curious, in all of that journey, what were some of the biggest mistakes that you saw leaders making?
Yeah. So sometimes what I see happening is that maybe some people didn't have the ambition to learn about people management, that it wasn't a priority. And I saw missed opportunities. Just an anecdote. There are some, or actually it's not really an anecdote, but I mean, missed opportunities could mean that a senior leader could have said thank you, and he didn't. And then he just basically missed an opportunity to really motivate people.
Recognize.
Yeah. So this kind of, so I think some of the mistakes include that you don't really think it through, that how does it feel for the people, that you basically are oriented on the achievements. This is where we need to go. And basically everything is centered on the objective. the thing is that you can have that, but if you add on top this kind of bringing
EQ.
people on board, then it will be perfect. Because I like this link that Rob sent, and I agreed this on the in the article. It was saying that for premium levels of psychological safety, you need not only supportive leadership and not only consultative leadership, but also challenging leadership. So, I mean, people like the challenge. They like it that they have
need
an
it.
objective. And I mean, I think all of the leaders always knew that there is an objective and I will communicate it. But the thing is, if you miss these kind of opportunities to make people feel engaged, then that's sad, because I think it's, in a sense, it's something which maybe some of the leaders didn't even think about. Maybe they didn't just realize that they are too much focused on this goal-oriented
results
communication.
right?
Yeah.
But I feel like it creates a lot of blind spots if you're not prioritizing the EQ in your leadership.
Yeah.
Because EQ, thank you, neuroscience, proves that, only 20% of our potential is measured by our IQ. The other whopping 80% is measured by our EQ.
Yeah.
And that's a perfect example of that, right? Where you wouldn't even calibrate the disengagement. You would be completely powerless to be able to step into that as a leader and do something about it. And yes, the level of engagement on your team is going to affect the results. Like you were just saying, it affects innovation and collaboration. And these are all things that we need to go and grow as a collective.
Yeah. And then another mistake, which is maybe because people are in a hurry, managers are in a hurry. One of a typical mistake is if a leader is just not there, if they don't show up. That's also something where it's much more significant than people might think. But if you're absent, then the people are left alone. And that's also something that I've specifically learned in a course, that you need to show up, you need to be visible, communicate, and people will also be looking at you. Okay, when times are good, you don't need to worry so much about what you look like. You can just, but when times get really, really tough and people get scared, then you have to really think about what you look like when you go to meet your team. Because if people are scared, they would love to see your face calm and reassuring. And I have experience from the time when the first team was laid off because the company closed shop. But there have been some drastic situations also in my second team where people were very much afraid. So those are the moments where you can build a lot of trust, or you can lose a lot of trust. And that's also very, I happen to think that it's actually quite tragic that some people may make mistakes that they didn't think about in those situations. Some leaders, I mean.
Well, I think we've seen that play out over the last 2 years, right? I kind of feel like this is exactly what you're describing. We know this as mothers, right? It's very intuitive. We understand over the last 2 years, our kids are looking at us to know how to feel about all this disruption.
Yes.
But it's exactly the same thing that your people on your teams are feeling, right? If there's uncertainty, they're looking for certainty in you.
Yes.
What's the biggest lesson that you've learned going through all this disruption over the last 2 years, or even if it's something that you saw play out in terms of maybe how that was navigated, what you just described? What was the biggest thing that you saw that you're going to take with you?
You mean from the pandemic?
Yeah, the last 2 years of disruption, the pandemic.
I have to admit that I resorted to methods that I was that I had to find already before. So, I mean, when there have been situations that were extremely distressing in the workplace, I basically get help. So I have to be able to identify when things are getting above going above my head, and I need to get help. I always have these trusted peers who I'm discussing with. By the way, that's one of my leadership secrets. You always need peers that are your confidants. The confidants. I always have confidants, and I'm always happy to be a confidant to another leader, because you need to be
leadership's lonely, right?
Exactly.
It can be very isolating for leaders. So you're totally right. You need a community.
Exactly. So the thing is that when going gets tough, you consult your peers, your confidants. But then I have also sought help from coaches, from occupational psychologists, because they actually have systems in place, at least in our company in Finland, that when you have a really tough spot, then you can get a set of sessions where you can go and get professional advice. It's not like therapy, really. It's a little bit like guidance for your working situation, because it can be pretty overwhelming. Mm-hmm. So yeah, I did that a lot, because I firmly believe that if I am feeling very unwell, then I'm not able to give a lot. Okay, sometimes, of course, things might be very bad, even if you do get counseling, but still it helps to keep the perspective. And during the pandemic, I also then tried to keep in touch with my peers and basically, talk. And then we also kept in touch with the team members by having things like telco coffees, etc. These techniques that went around in tips and bag of tricks for the pandemic.
For keeping engagement going, even though we were behind a computer screen 24/7, right? I think that was where we had to innovate. At least the leaders who saw that was going to be one of the most important things to have the ability to adapt through, right? I think that is definitely one of the biggest benefits, I feel like, of having these peer communities in terms of leadership, other leaders who support you and are kind of up against a lot of the same challenges, is that you get to exchange those resources, those bags of tricks. So I feel like that is something that you obviously have definitely doubled down on over the disruption, and that has really served you. And I know for the clients I've been working with, that obviously helped them navigate all of that disruption as well. And I think having that support not only helps you to sustain, but it helps you to find the opportunities for growth in all of that disruption and adversity.
Yeah. So, I mean, this pandemic I think it's been really, really tough on people. And I don't know if we actually understand all of the consequences by now.
I agree with you. It's been traumatic, right? That level of disruption has been traumatic.
And then again, one thing that I think is perhaps a little silver lining is that I think these topics on mental health have become
more popular,
easier to discuss, because I think it's still a little bit of a, like, in Finland there are people who will openly say that, oh yeah, I've had counseling, I've had therapy, but But this is not something that you can take for granted. It's not easy for everybody. So I hope that through developments like this, where you see a lot of people saying, coming out in the public and say, wow, this was really, really difficult for me, that then it can set an example about being open about mental health challenges. Because the thing is that the story never ends that in that way, that, someone had a mental health issue, someone had a burnout, whatever.
Mm-hmm.
The story continues. These people actually go ahead and recover, and there are methods.
Mm-hmm.
So I hate it when there is this kind of drama that this and this happened, and then he had a nervous breakdown, and then you don't tell what's this next part of the story, because there is always the next part of the story, and there is always hope. So I hope we will be more open about this, that this is like maybe a revolution in that sense. I hope so.
Well, let's talk about it. What do we see as the future of work based on all this disruption? Because I agree, this has been the thing I'm most grateful for, is the fact that now we are actually valuing holding space for conversations about our mental health. Yes, even in the context of work, right? Which is just opening us up to all this leadership 2.0 relational, people-centric style of leadership, which actually, as we prove on this show every week, the stats bear it out, drives the highest performing teams on the planet. So I definitely am there with you. But where do you see this thing going?
Well, I hope it's going in the direction that, people in different walks of life, and in the corporate space, people are much more aware about things like the SCARF model, or let's put SCARF 3.0 or whatever. I mean, the SCARF model is an old model, but still, it
still applies. It still applies. It still works.
So that people can be more aware of this components of good working health. That, like, what are the prerequisites for you to be productive and creative, so that not only some first level line managers who went to a course know about this theory if they remember it, but it's that people could know these in general. I hope university students could already learn about these things.
Speak on it, Kaisu.
Yeah,
I totally agree. We should be taught these skills in school. They're life skills.
Yeah.
Not just leadership skills, or life skills. They teach us how to successfully lead our lives.
Exactly. Yeah. And I that's where I hope that it's going. And I hope that leadership is not thought of as a talent, but that it is a role that you can learn. And it is a role that you will learn, and you can be supported to learn it. And this is very, very important for diversity. I was once talking to a group of girls in 8th grade, and I about engineering as a career.
Right.
And I felt it very important to add that any one of you girls could become leaders. And don't think that I couldn't do this, because nobody's ready. I was not ready when I became a team leader at the first time. I felt the role was awkward, but it's a role that you practice and you learn. I think you have to do it to learn the role. You can, of course, learn the theory.
Yep.
But you also need to practice the role. So
I agree with you.
So girls, women, and also not only girls and women, but different types of people. I happen to feel very strongly about this, because there's also something in corporate life favoring certain types of personalities as leaders, which is, of course, natural. And I don't want to take any of that away. But I feel that sometimes we have talent that we are not tapping
Seeing.
into, because somebody might appear to be an introvert.
Yeah, exactly.
Is not considered for a leadership role, which is actually something that is
it's
not
such
linked.
It's such a limited perspective, honestly.
Exactly.
I mean,
exactly.
Anybody listening to this show, they see Rob and I, an introvert and extrovert, the yin to the yang. And yeah, there's strengths in both. Clearly, there are strengths in both styles of leadership. So I feel like we could do a whole other show on that, Kaisu, but I can't get you out of here today until I ask you the biggest question that we like to ask our folks. You know, we've been working on this because you're in the Legacy Leadership 2.0 locker room with us. But what do you want the legacy of all of this fabulous servant leadership work that you're doing in the world? What do you want the legacy of that to be?
You know what? We have this saying in our company that if somebody has a really, really good idea, then we have to copy it with pride.
Yeah.
And I don't know if everybody in Canada and United States has heard this thinking of Michelle Obama like a zillion times, but in Finland, it's actually still true. It's like a nice thing that not everybody's talked about. So I really loved it when she said that, you know, for every door that she opens, then she wants to hold that door open to another person.
I love that.
I really, really love that quote. So I would love to do that. Now that I have this experience, then I really, really want to give back. So I want to help others. I want to be people's confidants and maybe then help them to open their door. I don't know what you want to call it. That is it me or them who is opening the door? That's that we can debate. But anyway,
building bridges. I kind of feel like you're building little bridges along the way, right?
Yeah.
Like you obviously had somebody tap you on the shoulder and present that opportunity to you, even though you didn't see that potential. That person clearly did. And so I kind of feel like that's how I recognize my 2.0 leaders out in the world, right? It's like, we have to pay that forward. We can't just sit on that. We need to expand that ripple effect as far and wide as we possibly can. So I knew that about you the first time you and I talked. So I'm just so grateful to have you in our locker room. You bring such sunshine and joy, like, to every single locker room session.
Oh, thank you.
Such an amazing contribution to the morale and the energy in that space. So I got to thank you, Kaisu. Why don't you leave our folks, just in case anybody out there wants to learn more about you or maybe wants to get in touch and do one of these coffee exchanges remotely over Zoom with you, where can these people find you?
Oh, you can find me in LinkedIn, for example. So feel free to connect via
and we'll definitely
LinkedIn.
We'll put the links all below the show here, like we usually do in the show notes, so that if anybody is ready to reach out, they can. Thank you, everybody, for us. Thank you for following along the Leadership Launchpad Project. If you haven't yet, hit subscribe. And this interview has to be getting that energy firing on all cylinders. If you're listening to this is a really great one. So
I really enjoyed it.
Share that with your peeps, share that with your future leader, share that with whomever you feel like this interview would serve best. For all that amazing Leadership 2.0 work that we're doing out in the world, you can visit us at elitehighperformance.com. We're doing all kinds of exciting programs right now, showing up in service to all this disruption and the opportunities for growth we talked about in this show. So we got programs on how to learn how to step into your leadership shoes, breaking burnouts like safety, DEI, talent optimization. We pretty much covering it all over at Team Elite. So if you're curious to learn more, you can find all that information over on the website, or you can send us an email. You can find me, Susan, at elitehighperformance.com or Rob at elitehighperformance.com. Kaisu, this was so much fun. Thank you so much for being here. I really enjoyed it. I know this is going to bring so much value and inspiration to our peeps. So we'll definitely have to have you back to keep talking about the future of work, because you were talking about having a 3D experience when you're at the boardroom. I mean, I calibrated that and I'm hanging on to it so we can have you have you back to tell us
I
more
think
about
it's
what
coming,
that looks like.
Yeah.
Thank you for listening, everybody.
you.
Have a fabulous week, and we'll see you next time.
Bye.